Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to TLT Talks. I'm coming to you live from Casa de Lidvec, and today is going to be epic. Today I have with me one of the most important people from the Compass leadership team. Here he is.
Hey, what's going
Hey,
on?
what's going on?
I can't hear
I
you.
can't
Can
hear
you?
you. Can you?
Oh, say something else, Rob.
Should we try again?
There we go.
All
There we
right.
go. I'm telling you, the hardest part about Instagram is typically the actual logistics, the actual technology. You know what? Maybe Compass should buy Instagram and just fix it. What do
Yeah.
you say? What do you
You
say?
have to really, really want it. You have to really want to get on there. Very.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, this guy is truly one of the most impressive people that I've ever known. He basically started doing business right out of the womb, maybe even inside. I don't actually know. Graduated summa cum laude from Duke, consulting in McKinsey. At 24, Robert Refkin goes, hey, let's do some real estate together. So he joins Compass, Forbes 30 under 30, ranked 27 on the 360, on the T360 list as one of the world's most influential people. Len, Gordo, how are you guys doing? Outside of work, he's worked on a bunch of humanitarian projects, and he would say he's a pretty good golfer. I don't know. I think the jury's still out on that one. Robert Lehman, welcome, my brother. How are you? How's everything?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on the program. Big fan.
Yeah, man. Cool, cool. So your official title is CBO, Chief Business Officer with Compass. I think it's improved millions over the years. I constantly see, congratulations, Lehman's got a new title. Congratulations, Lehman's got a new title. But CBO, what the hell does that mean? What are you actually responsible for? What do you actually do?
Who knows, man? Yeah, I'll let you know. No. So what I'm responsible for is basically everything for us that touches the customer. So for us, the customer agent, and so primarily that means deploying in all of our regions everything that is the special sauce that makes Compass that's supposed to help support and empower our agents. So
Right.
we build technology in-house. We build programs like concierge or bridge loans or whatever in-house. We have notions of marketing and design support that we can that we build, but somehow that needs to actually reach all of our agents. So
Right.
all the staff, all the offices, with over 250 offices across the country, over 1,200 people that operate in those offices that are deploying that value proposition to our agents. All those people report up to me, and so I'm responsible for making sure that we create that incredible experience for our agents, and then
Right.
also at our profit targets, right? So at the end of the day, all the dollars flow through that business. That's what I'm responsible.
Gotcha. So you're responsible for the people and the money.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Right, the people and the money. Very cool. Well, that's a pretty big responsibility because not only are both equally important, but they actually fuel each other. Without the people, there's no money. Without the money, it's going to be harder to get the people. So that's
You
it's a
should be
big
doing.
job.
You make it.
Well, to that effect, actually, that's what I thought we would chat about today. I know you got a hard stop at 12:35. I'll have you out here on time. Sometimes, I mean, Gordon and I went like 30. We had Gordon on a couple of weeks ago. We went like 30 minutes over. We just couldn't stop. But I know I'm really respectful of your time. And
Important to my podcast anymore.
Gordon's watching. Gordon's watching. I think maybe you said something about your blue, that you're wearing the blue for the Blue Devils.
Yeah.
By the way, for all those people that may be watching, this is not meant to be a lecture. As always, comment, ask questions. Happy to answer. You've got a really brilliant mind. I'm on here, and of course, I'm talking about myself. No, you got a really brilliant mind on here to ask questions of, and that's what the conversation I thought we would have today is. This is a 6-week series of seeing Compass through the eyes of the leadership team. Last week we had Rini on. We called her the mother of Compass. That if Refkin and Ori were the fathers, that Rini maybe is like the mother. She knows literally more individuals than anybody else. And so I'd love to just pick your brain about, how it all started. And then as a part of this, we'll talk a little bit about as COVID hit and these things hit, how do we pivot correctly? So you're 24 years old. You're 24 years old. Robert Refkin phones you or walks up to you and he goes, "Hey, look, I got an idea. Let's start a real estate company." Start me there. Take me from there. Give me the story.
Yeah, so I was 24. I was, working at McKinsey. I knew I wanted to do something in the startup world, like something really entrepreneurial. I had spent 6 months interviewing at 30 different companies. I interviewed with like super early stage startup companies, and really I was just like, I was willing to sacrifice on everything. I was willing to sacrifice on geography, on salary, on what my role was, on what the industry was, what the business model was. The only things I wasn't willing to sacrifice on were, number one, the overall size of the opportunity. The fact that, like, if this thing hit, if this thing went really well, that it could be a once in a generation type business. And the second was the quality of the people. Like I told myself I wanted the opportunity to be massive and for it to be the most talented team that I've ever come across. So I just kept sort of searching until I felt like that I saw that intersection. I met Robert and Ori and the Gordon and the whole team that was there at the time. There were about 20 people or so at the company when I joined, and those two things were definitively true. It was obviously, you're talking about a $217 trillion asset class. Real estate is the largest. And it was the smartest, most capable team that I'd ever come across in any. And so, for me, that hit. And the thing that I remember really resonating with me was, in terms of just initially making the decision, was just hearing Robert's vision for the company that seemed so much more human and so much more thoughtful than everyone else in the space. There's this this graveyard of every single software company that had ever tried to take a crack at real estate. It wasn't like we were the first ones to software opportunity in real estate, but everyone else started from this premise that, like, let's disintermediate the real estate agent, or let's undermine the real estate agent. There's some sort of conflict or friction with agents, and the idea of being like, you know what, we're going to build with and around and for real estate agents. I just thought that was such like a fresh perspective on it, and I really loved it.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I remember, I came in 2014, and the first, like, all of the energy, at that time, the technology is still pretty raw. And all of the energy was like, just tell us what you want us to build and we'll just go out and build it. And I was like, you know what, BS. And then you guys just kept building shit, like you just kept going. I think it'd be really great if we did this, thinking I'm like, it's a Hail Mary of some sort. And all of a sudden, 3 months later, Refkin will reach out to me like, "Hey, remember that thing we talked about? Bait it, go." I'm like, what are you talking about? And that was like, till this day, it's still the case. Today it's CRM and it's other things. So how did you guys, as you started to grow, right? So Compass is this really small shop. Originally in Refkin's studio apartment, and then Soho, and then 95th, and so on and so forth. How did you guys manage the growth, right? Like, how did you decide how quickly to grow? At first, of course, you're just hoping for success, and all of a sudden, like a brush fire, it just took off. Yeah. And in lots of ways, you were responsible for the growth engine, the growth vehicle, not just achieving these sometimes heroic KPIs, but also in making sure not to go too fast to where you burn the team out or whatever. It's somewhere I've struggled in my career, is we tend to grow quickly. And I'd heard about the phenomenon of you could grow the top line while the bottom line shrinks. I'm like, what are you talking about? I learned that lesson a couple of years ago. I definitely learned, as Keith Cunningham calls it, the dumb tax. I've learned that one. But just in general, whatever you care to share for any entrepreneurs out there that might be looking to expand or grow their business, anything you guys did really well, anything, looking back, you could have done better of managing this growth vehicle.
Yeah. I think, so, for us, I remember, when I first got to Compass, we definitely did not have the value proposition locked in. we like back in 2013, we had a bunch of ideas, we were starting to build stuff, but like it was not clicking. We were still like, we were in survival mode, and we didn't have anything that people loved. And even then we had this instinct. We had just so much ambition. We're like, let's start to expand. Let's go like, launch all these other markets. And I think it saved the company that we didn't do that, right? Because we weren't ready for it. And so one of the best things that we did was like actually make sure that we focused on making the business model work, making it work in New York. We pivoted the business in New York really away from rentals. And this sort of like strange employee model that we had this idea for, to say, you know what, we wanted agent centric. Let's go 100% in on just attracting great agents and building for them. As soon as that clicked, then we started to have sort of the semblance of an idea of like, okay, so we can support them. And it's much better to have that nucleus that works. It's much better we started to bring on agents and realized, hey, okay, they've got their own business. We can support them. We can create value for them. Now let's think about what the expansion looks like. So then, Washington, D.C. was our first expansion market. And we launched that to say, okay, that's the next really big step, to say, does this work in a different city? Were we lucky in New York or something like that? Does this work somewhere else? And then we fought really hard. It was not easy. The people that were in DC in the early days knew, that this was a whole different beast. The data systems were different. Everything was different. But we fought and we survived. And then it was only after we figured that out to say, okay, now we can start to like export this. Right. And then we're launching, major markets a year. But it was really about not letting your ambition blind you to the realities of the strength of your business. I think it was not, Compass was not always a guarantee. The early days, there were some real we just got to survive moments. And I think like in those instances, going slow to be able to go fast was what saved us.
Yeah, there's a line from the Navy SEALs that I say over and over to everyone on my team and all of our clients, especially now amidst this market: slow, smooth, and smooth is fast. Like sometimes you got to slow down and speed up. And I've certainly had that in my business also, where the crux of most entrepreneurs is shiny penny. You want to do everything right now because there's this underlying the opportunity cost, but someone's going to beat you to it. And sometimes it's like, just chill out, pick this thing, nail this thing, set the foundation, then move to the next thing. Because you try to do everything at once, nothing gets done.
It's a way of putting it. Like the way I think about it is very, very easy to say yes to things.
Yeah.
To say no to things. And so what you say no to is much more important and should be than what you say yes.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's also, the truth is, inherently, when you say yes to something, you're also saying no to something else, because there's only so many resources, whether it's time or money or both. In most cases, there's only so many resources. So like if you're saying yes to these 5 things, well, now instead of having 30 hours a week to focus on this thing, you're spread 5. I mean, again, we talk on our team constantly about, you got to treat time in the same way you treat money. It's a currency. It's finite. It's the only truly fair currency, because everyone has the same amount of time, but it's still a currency. And like working, I'll just work more is not the appropriate solution. That doesn't always, I mean, sometimes it's fine, but like there's only so many hours in a day. Very cool. And then so fast forward to about, let's say 2-ish years ago, you guys decide, well, we've had these series of funding. Now here we are, 2020. We want to have top 20% in the top 20 regions by 2020 in a true Compass fashion. You guys smashed it a year early. So it's going to go down in history now as 2019. Way to go. You messed up the marketing campaign for Spangler, because 2019 does not sound nearly as sexy as 2020. But that happened, and that was, in at the same time around as SoftBank, and there's all this stuff. So I'm wondering, what do you think led to the success? I mean, I remember when you guys launched 2020, and I was like, damn, that's ambitious. And I totally believe it, because at this point, whatever they set their minds to, they accomplish. Like maybe it won't be by 20, but it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. Like I definitely drank the Compass Kool-Aid. I'm all in. So walk me through that. I think it was 2018 that initiative was launched, right? Right
around then. And I think the basic principle of it is this notion of like, if you're an entrepreneur, you know, the your like how big you dream is the cap to your potential. Basically.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
Amen.
right, which
Amen.
uh, and I've just seen the power of it again and again. Whether you're talking about it at the scale of 2020, 2020, or if you're just talking about like month to month targets for your team. Um, it's not about like whether it's not about just setting unrealistic targets that you never hit, because that's also demotivating. But
Right.
like very powerful about setting very specific, extremely ambitious targets and just getting the entire team oriented around this idea of saying, I know that seems impossible. When we talked about 2020, possible. But if you get everyone around the table and you say, okay, if you just put all your doubts away for a second and you just assume that it's possible, just assume that we're living in a world where it's definitely possible, how would you do it? How would
Yeah.
you, right? There's something so powerful about that. And I
Yeah.
do that in everyday meetings with people where like, a lot of the time the natural inclination is we can't do it for this reason, this reason, this reason, this reason. It's like, okay, great.
Yeah.
Those are all good reasons why it's going to be hard. But if you just
Mm-hmm.
like you waved a wand and said it's definitely possible. It is 100% possible. Then how would you do it from
That's
there?
right.
Really magical things can happen. So that's kind of what at the highest level that strategy was about, and it sort of built a sense of momentum. And I remember there being like this really fascinating. One of the most interesting things to me was the skepticism around it, which was sort of
Mm-hmm.
like there are all these publications and things that wrote about this is why they're not going to get to 20% share or like, to 20 markets or whatever, all this stuff. And I just remember thinking it's just funny because like, what if we come a little short?
Yeah.
Like, that's okay. We're still going to be then in like the top 18 markets and have 18%
Yeah. Yeah.
share.
Yeah.
Like, that's still okay.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I love about dreaming big is like, listen, if I aim for $1 million and I get to 950, okay, fine, great. If I aim for 10 million and I end up at 8, life doesn't suck. Like life doesn't suck. Yeah, and I love that you said that. I love that you said that. I love that. I coach a bunch of people, and I find oftentimes that people would look, at a you, at a Robert Refkin, at an Ori, at a Gordon, at a Rini, and they would think like, yeah, but those people, they don't have these fears and they don't have these things, and it's just not true. In business, like in most things in life, 80% is mindset. 80% is mindset. 20% is the actual execution, and the mindset's right. The execution becomes easy. So I love because that's a lot of the same work that I do is, the battle for us, for the leaders, the battle is getting people in the right mindset. And if you start with a powerful question, you just get them, get them seeing the world just a little bit differently, more in the realm of possibility versus doubt. All of a sudden, neurons fire, ideas just start to click, and then it's like a brush fire. And then, oh, yeah, but what about that? And then before you know it, then now you find yourself in the position of like, whoa, 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 whoa. We can't say yes to all of that. Now you're back, like, now I got to start. I told
Yeah,
them to get fired up. Now I got to say no to them.
yeah, exactly.
And how did SoftBank impact all of this? Like that was a really big move, man. When SoftBank, I mean, these guys are known for investing in the best companies in the world, and I know they have hugely massive premium KPIs. They're not about, well, let's make a small incremental move. SoftBank's about, let's either destroy the competition and be the only ones, or like it's not even worth my time kind of thing. So it's
Yeah.
really exciting to see him invest at Compass. How did that whole thing play out?
I mean, I think it's just um, they're the epitome of dreaming big, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you know, I remember, Robert and I were working on the investor material for them, and we like went into the meeting. Robert, was in Japan, went into the meeting, and about twice we sort of got like laughed out of the room for not thinking,
yeah.
and it was just like never been told that we weren't thinking big enough. I was like, what? Um, and but I think that's there is this like when you're thinking an order magnitude bigger of like what is possible and trying to build towards that, there's something really powerful that
Yeah,
happened.
yeah.
That was the most um, yeah the sort of the biggest best lesson from the SoftBank partnership.
Very cool. Very, very cool. So I'd love to get a little more tactical. Get to take advantage of that brilliant brain of yours. So COVID hits. We were just, you and I were catching up a little bit before this live, and I was sharing with you that uh, too much pride and validation, all these things. We're in August, and I think we're gonna have our best month ever of my career,
Awesome.
despite these conditions. On the back of the third best month of my career, the team has really come together, and the leadership team. As you know, we're a company within a company. The leadership team, we made some really important pivots very early on, which resulted in us being able to execute, and the landlords and the developers and the sellers finding us because they're seeing success or whatnot. Like we've turned off all lead gen vehicles. We've made a very difficult decision to say no to multiple clients in the last couple of weeks, which for me is like kryptonite because I want to help everybody in the world. It's not even about the money. I don't care about the money. It's just I love to help people, and people are struggling right now, and I'm built to help people. And Sarah, who I know is watching this, and most of the team, that's just our culture. We love to help, and it was really difficult to say no. But essentially, look, it was the result of really great pivots. Compass, similarly, COVID hits, it took the whole world by storm. Then right after, we've got social injustice, and business out there is certainly not business as usual. The whole game is changing. I'm just wondering at a really tactical, either high level or tactical, anywhere you want to take it, anything that people can learn from. What were some of the moves you guys made very early on with COVID, or what were some of the critical pivots, adjustments, whatever, in order to be able to protect the health of the company and its people?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's sort of a couple different components to it. The first is, I just think when a crisis hits, like you just have to act so swiftly and so quickly, because it's just like the world is going to split into people that like leaned into the storm versus people that just got paralyzed by it, that.
Yeah.
And so the first thing that we did was, before any other major company, we actually announced that we were going to do some layoffs. It was a really hard decision to make. But we, like, COVID hit in when it was like very clear it was going to be serious. We made a round of layoffs. There was less than 15% of the company, but we made that decision within a week. And the point was, at that point, it was like, we knew it was going to be bad, but we didn't know how bad. It could be like, transactions were going to be down by 90% for year for all we knew. And the point was, first of all, job one was protect the company, because if the company doesn't survive, then everyone's impacted. And the second thing was, the faster you move, the fewer people get impacted. We made right then. I remember having a conversation with the board to be like, hey, we had to cut a number of people, but if we'd taken longer to move, and they were talking about their people were debating for weeks, months about how many people to cut, then you end up having to cut more because you incur more costs. So if you're going to have to make a tough decision, like, make it quickly and decisive. And then we just we really got to work around saying it's going to be a speed of adaptation game, right?
Exactly.
Just don't assume things are going to go back to normal. Invest in understanding what this world looks like. So my team literally did is we mapped every single physical touch point with our agents, and we said, okay, so what's the path towards understanding how we virtualize that? And so you go immediately to. And how do we make it better? It's not just how do we try to make it not painful, but how do we actually make it better? And so if you take things like sales meetings, where we really leaned into how do we create a great sales meeting experience. We went from about 30% sales meeting attendance physically to about 60-70% virtual attendance. Make it better, right? Every single thing in terms of how people get paid, how we support them. We created technology to be able to make sure that we can go into people's computers to solve their IT issues, all this stuff. So that was sort of a really big component to making sure that we understood every part of how to touch an agent, including recruiting, right? We went from never having brought on a new agent without meeting them in person to doing that exclusively overnight, right? And so you just got to, and I think the world does split into those two worlds. There's going to be a lot of companies that if you ask them, hey, what do you have today that you didn't have before COVID hit? They'll say, we're just happy to be alive.
Yeah, exactly.
You can win against that baseline.
Yeah, it's really smart, man. Honestly, so I've done a lot of work with Tony and whatever, and it's the same thing. Like, the seminar world was dead, and everyone's like, oh my God. And this guy went and built this virtual space in his house, and now he was able to reduce the cost for the consumer, touch more people, expand his reach. And now, instead of being on a plane every day, like Refkin's really used to, he's doing it from his house. Yeah. And I'm like, look, the truth is, I don't think he's going back. Maybe he'll do a couple live events a year, but for the most part, it's cheaper for people. It's easier for people, and he can reach more people. And his top line just went through the roof, and his expense line just went to the floor. There's no more arenas, no more rents, no more. It's like, and so yeah, man, I love that model. I love that model. Lean in, get it done fast. I know how you and Rob and Ori and Gore, like, I know how much you guys love people, and I know that it was a really difficult decision to lay off the people you laid off. But again, it's, you got to say no to those people to say yes to the other 85%. If you're on a plane that's going down, you got to protect yourself first before you can get to anybody else. So I just have so much respect for leadership that can make tough calls. And yeah, man, it's just about adopting to the new world. Like, so we actually had some comments coming as we were going through this. Gordon says that he's not busy doing anything. That's why he's watching this, which that's bullshit. Gordon's always busy. Gordon says, you both inspire me. Thank you. Going to my next meeting now and fired to you. Oh, man, what's happening here? Folks on the side with energy just infusing me. You're welcome, Gordon. We love you. Kate's talking about getting her real estate license. This thing's messing up. There might be a question I saw in there, but there's not. Well, thank you guys for the comments. Really appreciate it. Yeah, man, from where I sit, I just want to say great job, because I remember, we take a lot of matters into our own hands. So similarly, I see this thing coming. We mobilized. We got everybody work from home within like 3 days. We got videos of all our apartments immediately. And I just remember within like a week or two, there was this like laundry list of like, okay, here's stuff. Here's these tools. I'm like, I literally had to put Sarah on digesting the tools because I couldn't keep up with all the new tools being released. It was like insane. So thank you from someone that's a stakeholder and a shareholder in the company. Thank you for your efforts and the fact that you were willing to make tough decisions, and the fact that even though fear was there, so was courage. Because there was nobody that was not afraid during this time. So thank you and all that. Walker Bell asks a really good question. When there are 50 problems to solve for at once, I added to solve for at once. How do you determine which problem to start with? That's a really good one. Yeah, that's a really good one.
I mean, I always talk about my overall like analogy that I think about when I start every single day is the rocks, pebbles, sand analogy.
So good.
You got like you got a glass jar. I think about this all the time. You got a glass jar.
You forgot the beer. Rock, pebbles, sand, beer. Don't forget the beer is the most important part.
Yeah, I know exactly how to. But if you have a glass jar. You're trying to fill it with rocks, with pebbles, and with sand. If you start they represent the rocks, important things. The pebbles represent that your like day-to-day activities you have to do. The sand represents all the distractions, all the fires, all of our natural inclination is to fill that glass jar with sand first, then pebbles, and then put on. You do it that way, right? If you visualize it, the rocks end up not. If you start by putting in the rocks, then put in the pebbles, then sand, everything ends up.
Yeah, it's really good. The beers, there's a video on this, and after it's a professor in college, he does the rocks, he does the pebbles, he does the sand, and then he goes, "Is the jar full now?" And they're like, "Yes." And then he takes beer, pours in beer, and he goes, "Because don't forget, there's always time for a beer with a friend." It's really cute. It's really cute. All right, I know you got to go. One last question. Sorry, wait, 2 more questions. I have a question, and Sean Sasso, I'd feel like a scumbag if I didn't pose his question to you. Do you see Compass brokerages reducing their commercial and retail presence with brokers work from home?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we will develop in partnership with our agents, right? It's like all we care about, every dollar that we invest is just around what's going to have the biggest impact for our agents' business. I think one of the things that every agent has learned in this environment is that they can run their business entirely virtually. You don't need a commercial office to be able to run your business. So I think as things open up again, it's just going to be a really collaborative conversation that we have with our agents.
Yeah.
Hey, the dollars go somewhere. We can spend dollars on rent for commercial space, or if you don't need that in that traditional way, then we can spend that money on marketing, or we can spend it on technology.
Yeah.
And so it's really not up to us. It's about what we decide with you guys collaboratively on what's going to create the most.
Cool. All right. Well, any final tips? I have a question for you. Am I going to read about, or hopefully hear about before I read about Compass International? Am I going to hear that my hometown of Ukraine has a location, or is it Paris, or is it Australia? I mean, Rini spilled the beans last week on the show. She said that Compass is going IPO next week. No, I'm just joking. She actually literally said she doesn't know, and she said you guys won't tell her because if you told her, she would spill the beans. It was really fun, really funny chat. But any final thoughts? And do you see Compass International anytime in the future?
Yeah, so I pleased to announce for the very first time that we're going to be launching internationally in your hometown in the Ukraine.
I love it. You heard it here first, folks. Heard it here first. Baby, I love you. I got to go to Ukraine with the boys. I gotta pay homage to my company. I'd be a bad shareholder if I didn't go and visit the office.
We talk about international, a lot. We obviously we're going to be a global company. I think it's most likely when we do launch international, we'll start in Canada, probably because it's it's close by.
Of course,
I think, so yeah, I think, but the timing for it is there's so much opportunity left in the U.S. And the way that I think about it is the reason that you go international, as a company is really if you have run out of room in your market, or if you have a other global competitor that's starting to grab up market share faster than you, right? And the way that Uber and Lyft started to get into a foot race on who can get to international markets first. We don't have either of those pressures. And so that gives us to say, let's not distract from our U.S. business in the immediate term. Let's make sure that we keep getting better and better. And then once we're ready, or once there is some sort of competitive threat, then we can turn on the gas and go international.
Which makes more sense, or rather a lot of sense. It's everything we just talked about. We're saying no to international to say yes to national. And about 2 years ago, I think it was, Rob put out that really good State of the Union to the company. We're going to go from wider to we're going to spend the next year deeper. And it was one of the best moves ever. Mr. Lehman, I cannot thank you enough for your time, for all of your commitment to this company and everything you do on a day-to-day basis. As CBO, many people may have not known what you do, but now we know. You're in charge of the people and the money. That's it. Should be an asterisk. CBO, people and money. Boom. No, thank you so much, man. I know you have an appointment to get to. Really appreciate your time.
It was a blast.
Yeah. Viva, my man.
That you do. You guys have been an incredible culture builders for since day one, and you represent everything that we dream about people really achieving their potential. And you guys have been extraordinary, an extraordinary story on that front. It's hard work, it's good people, and it's a lot of the trial and error and doing the right things. So thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you, my man. Thanks, Rob. All right, man. Have a good one, bud.